The cold, ruthless cruelty of workplace power struggles has never been hidden behind fancy office uniforms and standardized rules. IT is naked, selfish, and arrogant. Those in minor authority hold trivial regulations as their sword and shield, trampling on others' life and death emergencies to satisfy their twisted sense of superiority, treating other people's family tragedies as bargaining chips and entertainment. For a long time, I have tolerated the deliberate difficulties, repeated nitpicks, and targeted suppression from my department director, Carter. I kept my head down, did my job dutifully, and believed that as long as I was diligent and compliant, I could stay out of trouble and survive the trivial disputes of the workplace. I was wrong. Some people's malice has no bottom line. Some people's arrogance can override all humanity and conscience. When disaster struck my family, when my brother lay dying in the ICU fighting for every breath, Director Carter used cold, rigid workplace rules to block my way to save my family. She squeezed every ounce of my patience, trampled my humble pleas, deducted my life-saving bonus without mercy, and forced me to choose between work performance and my brother's life. She never imagined that the cold-blooded rules she clung to, the arrogant power she flaunted, and the cruel difficulties she deliberately created would eventually smash her own life to pieces in the most shocking, irreversible reversal. I am Lynn M.I. an ordinary grassroots employee in the administrative department of Shingshire Commercial Group. I work overtime every day, abide by all company rules, complete every report and task with meticulous care, and never take initiative to argue or compete for benefits. My life has always been simple and cramped, and my parents are ordinary workers with mediocre savings, and my elder brother is the only pillar of our young family. He works overtime day and night to support my college tuition and our family's daily expenses, shouldering all the pressure silently so I can work steadily in the city's big enterprise. For me, my brother is not just a family member. He is my shelter, my reliance, and the entire hope of our ordinary family. But on a rainy, gloomy Tuesday afternoon, all peace was shattered by a frantic phone call that cut through my busy office work. The call was from the emergency center of the city's central hospital. The nurse's voice was rapid and solemn, carrying the heavy weight of life and death that made my blood turn cold in an instant. Is this the family member of Lynn Howe? Your elder brother was in a serious high-speed car accident. The vehicle is severely damaged. He has multiple fractures, severe intracranial hemorrhage, and unstable vital signs. He has been sent directly to the ICU. Please rush to the hospital immediately to sign the operation consent form and prepare for high emergency surgery. The operation fee needs to be paid in full within 3 hours, otherwise we cannot proceed with the rescue. Every word pierced my eardrum like a sharp ice blade. My brain went blank instantly. All the data and forms in front of me blurred completely, and the noisy office chatter faded into a distant buzz. My legs went weak, and I grabbed the edge of the desk to keep from collapsing. My brother, who had always been healthy, tough, and protective of me, was lying in the ICU on the verge of death, waiting for surgery that would determine his life or death. The operation fee was a huge sum for our ordinary family. Our parents had no spare money saved up, and all my recent salary had been used for my mother's physical examination and daily household expenses. The only money I could rely on urgently was my quarterly full attendance and performance bonus, which was about to be settled in 3 days. This bonus was the only life-saving money for my brother's surgery. Company rules stipulated that if an employee took emergency personal leave without prior approval, the entire quarterly bonus would be fully deducted, with no exceptions. Once the bonus was withheld, we would have no way to gather the operation fee in time, and my brother would miss the best window of rescue. I had no choice. I had to apply for official emergency leave from my department director, Carter, to guarantee my bonus would not be forfeited, so I could rush to the hospital to save my brother. Without a second of hesitation, I grabbed my work notebook, tightened my grip on my trembling fingers, and rushed straight to the top-floor director's office. The entire way, my heart pounded violently, my mind filled with only one thought: beg for approval, keep the bonus, save my brother. I did not have time to tidy my messy hair or calm my flustered breathing. I knocked on Carter's office door urgently, and after getting permission, I pushed the door open and stepped in, my voice trembling but sincere, full of humble pleading for a chance to save my family. Director Carter, please approve my emergency leave. My elder brother has been in a fatal car accident and is in the ICU waiting for emergency surgery. I have to rush to the hospital immediately to sign the documents and prepare the fees that I will make up all delayed work overtime after I come back, and I promise not to affect any team performance. Please approve my leave application. Director Carter was sitting behind her luxurious black desk, leisurely sorting out her manicured nails, her expression cold and indifferent, without the slightest trace of sympathy or surprise. She was a middle-aged woman in her 40s, holding the highest administrative power in our department, famous in the entire company for her harshness, nitpicking, and extreme workplace bullying. She was fond of using trivial rules to suppress grassroots employees, deliberately making things difficult for subordinates to highlight her authority, and she had targeted me countless times over the past 2 years for no reason. She had always disliked me precisely because I was quiet, compliant, and never took the initiative to curry favor with her, never gave her gifts or flattered her like other colleagues. In her eyes, my honesty and dutifulness were disrespect and rebellion. She had long been waiting for an opportunity to teach me a lesson, to suppress my momentum, and to let me know who held the absolute power in this department. Facing my life or death plea, she did not even lift her eyes, her tone lazy, cold, and perfunctory, full of deliberate indifference and obstruction. Emergency leave requires official emergency medical certificates. You have no certificate in hand right now, so I cannot approve your leave. Company rules are clear, and no one can make exceptions. I was flustered and anxious, tears welling up in my eyes, but I forced myself to stay calm and explain eagerly. Director, the patient is still in the ICU for emergency rescue. The hospital hasn't issued a formal printed emergency certificate yet. Only the admission slip and preliminary diagnosis record are available now. I can send you all the proof immediately. Please be flexible and approve my leave. My brother's life is hanging by a thread, and I really can't wait. Flexibility was the last thing Carter was willing to give. She finally raised her head, her narrow eyes sweeping over my flustered and desperate face, the corners of her mouth curling into a cold, mocking smile, full of deliberate malice and obstruction. Rules are rules. There is no flexibility in company management. I don't accept oral explanations or temporary screenshots. If you want me to approve your leave, video call me right now. I need to personally witness your father holding the household registration booklet and the official hospital diagnosis certificate in front of the ICU ward. Only after I verify it with my own eyes can I consider your application. Her request was harsh, unreasonable, and extremely excessive. At that moment, my elderly father was standing trembling outside the sterile ICU ward, panicked and helpless, his mind blank from the sudden disaster. He had never dealt with such a major emergency in his life, yet Carter insisted on a real-time video inspection, demanding precise documents and certificates in a chaotic life or death scene. She was not verifying the truth. She was deliberately making things difficult, deliberately consuming my time, deliberately taking pleasure in my family's crisis. Desperate and helpless, I had no choice but to obey. I immediately dialed my father's video call, my fingers shaking so badly that I could barely hold my phone steady. The call connected quickly, and the screen showed my father's pale, haggard face covered in cold sweat, his eyes red and swollen from crying, his whole body trembling uncontrollably outside the ICU door. The background was the noisy, tense emergency corridor of the hospital, full of the oppressive atmosphere of life and death. Dad, hold on, don't panic. Director Carter needs to verify the situation via video. Please hold up my brother's admission slip, diagnosis record, and our household registration booklet to the camera. Let the director see clearly. I choked back my tears and spoke in a trembling voice, guiding my father step by step. My 60-year-old father, who had always been dignified and steady, was completely flustered at this moment. He hurriedly took out all the crumpled documents from his pocket, his hands shaking violently, struggling to hold the documents steadily in front of the camera. He stood stiffly in the crowded corridor, humble and helpless, cooperating with the unreasonable inspection of a stranger for his child's life. I held the phone tightly, begging in a hoarse voice, my eyes full of pleading. Director Carter, please take a good look. This is the hospital admission certificate. This is the diagnosis record. This is our household registration. The situation is completely true, and my brother is really dying in the ICU. Please approve my leave immediately. Carter leaned back in her leather chair, staring at the video screen casually, her eyes cold and unfeeling. She only glanced at the screen for 2 perfunctory seconds, then impatiently waved her hand, cut off the video call directly, and threw all my pleas into the void. Her face was covered with disgust and arrogance, and she spoke in a cold, ruthless tone without a single trace of humanity. The proof is not standardized enough, the information is incomplete, and the verification fails. Your emergency leave application is officially rejected. According to company rules, unapproved personal leave during working hours will result in a full deduction of 3 months full bonus. Don't talk to me about emergencies or family difficulties. The emergency room is not a funeral parlor, and no one dies just from waiting a few hours. Finish all your quarterly report forms carefully before you mention leaving the company. Every single word was like a cold hammer smashing heavily on my heart. She knew exactly how urgent my brother's situation was. She saw my father's helpless trembling with her own eyes. She heard my desperate pleas clearly. But she chose to ignore all humanity, trample on my family's life and death crisis, and use rigid rules as a weapon to punish me, to vent her long-standing prejudice and suppression against me. She would rather let me miss the rescue time, let my brother's life hang in the balance, and let our family fall into collapse than grant me a single emergency leave. She used my brother's life as a tool to establish her authority, to satisfy her twisted desire to control and bully subordinates. She picked up the official leave rejection form, signed her name sharply and forcefully, and threw it heavily on her desk in front of me. The white paper with her cold signature was like a death sentence for my brother's rescue. For 2 full years, I had tolerated her endless nitpicks, unreasonable reprimands, and targeted suppression. I had swallowed all my grievances, endured all the unfair treatment, and never dared to resist or complain. I thought that forbearance could bring peace, that compliance could win minimal mercy. But at this moment, I completely woke up. For arrogant, cold-blooded, and malicious people like Carter, forbearance is weakness, compliance is cowardice, and kindness is the most useless thing in the world. Looking at the cold rejection form, the overwhelming despair and anger in my heart faded completely, replaced by a bone-chilling, calm coldness. No more hysterical arguments, no more humble tears, no more useless pleas. I knew that begging a cold-blooded person for mercy was the most ridiculous joke in the world. I slowly took out my mobile phone, opened the saved voice memo function, and adjusted my tone to be extremely calm, clear, and steady, without the slightest tremor or emotion, and spoke word by word into the recording microphone. Dad, don't wait for me to rush over with a bonus. There's no need to prepare the operation fee in a hurry. The police have completed all accident investigations and official verifications. The seriously injured person sent to the ICU with facial disfigurement and unidentifiable identity is not my elder brother Lin Hao at all. The real perpetrator of this fatal high-speed car accident is Director Carter's only son, Jason Carter. He stole a private sports car without permission, raced at extreme speed on the highway, lost control of the vehicle, crashed head-on into a guardrail, and the entire car was completely scrapped. He had no ID documents on his body at the time of the accident, and his face was severely damaged in the crash, so the police initially misidentified the identity based on the vehicle information and emergency contact, mistakenly taking him as my brother. Let Director Carter put down her so-called company rules and her arrogant authority immediately. Tell her to rush to the ICU right now and personally sign the critical illness informed consent form for her dying son. The person waiting for life-saving surgery in the ICU is her own flesh and blood, not my family. Third-party objective commentary. This is the core turning point and official opening of the full-text high-energy climax. As an onlooker who clearly sees the whole story, I have to objectively evaluate the heroine Lin Mia. She is by no means a weak, tolerant workplace coward as she appears on the surface. She is calm, rational, and extremely strategic. Faced with the villain Carter's extreme workplace bullying and inhumane obstruction of her family's life-saving emergency, she does not choose impulsive quarrels or emotional collapse, which is the most valuable part of her character. Carter, as the absolute core big villain of the full text, fully exposes her selfish, cold-blooded, power-arrogant, and conscience-less essence here. She uses workplace rules as a shield for personal malice, takes pleasure in others' family disasters, and bullies subordinates unscrupulously. Her extreme cruelty paves the way for the subsequent devastating reversal and face-slapping retribution. All the previous suppression and difficulties are foreshadowing, and the real cool counterattack and brutal retribution are officially launched from the second. The moment I finished recording the voice memo, the entire office fell into a dead, suffocating silence. The arrogant smile on Carter's face froze completely, her casual and indifferent expression shattered in an instant, replaced by extreme shock, disbelief, and terrified panic. Her pupils contracted sharply, her body stiffened completely, and she stared at me in horror, as if she had seen a ghost. She had indulged in bullying me, immersed herself in the pleasure of controlling subordinates and wielding power, and never imagined that the life-or-death emergency she had frivolously dismissed, the disaster she had treated as a joke, was actually her own family's mortal catastrophe. Her voice trembled violently, completely losing her previous arrogance and authority, and she stood up abruptly from her chair, staggering forward 2 steps, her eyes staring at me fixedly, her face pale and bloodless. What did you say? Impossible. That's absolutely impossible. My son Jason is at school today. How could he drag race and crash a car? How dare you slander my son casually? Lin Mia, you're deliberately making up lies to take revenge on me because I rejected your leave. You're crazy. I put away my phone slowly, raised my eyes to look at her panic-stricken face, my tone still calm and cold, without the slightest fluctuation, every word clear and powerful, piercing her last line of defense. I am not slandering, nor am I taking revenge out of anger. 10 minutes ago, the traffic police accident team took the initiative to call my family to correct the identity information. The vehicle involved in the accident is a luxury sports car reported stolen this morning by a private owner. After on-site investigation and witness confirmation, the driver who raced illegally and caused the crash is your son Jason. He has a long record of speeding and drag racing violations. He stole the car to race secretly today, which led to this fatal accident. He had no ID on him, his face was severely damaged in the crash, and the police initially matched the emergency contact number bound to the vehicle with my brother's work phone number, leading to the identity misjudgment. Now all information has been fully corrected. The person lying in the ICU with unstable vital signs, waiting for family signature for life-saving surgery, is your only son. Carter's legs went weak in an instant. She grabbed the edge of her desk tightly to avoid collapsing to the ground, her whole body trembling like a leaf in the wind, cold sweat soaking through her delicate shirt in an instant. Her previous arrogance, indifference, and domineering disappeared without a trace, leaving only overwhelming fear and despair. She knew her son's virtues better than anyone else. Jason was spoiled by her since childhood, arrogant, lawless, fond of speeding and drag racing, and had repeatedly violated traffic rules. She had always used her power and connections to suppress his violations and settle his troubles, thinking she could protect him forever. She never expected that her indulgence would lead to a fatal car accident one day, and that she would personally miss the best rescue time for her son because of her trivial workplace malice. No way, my son can't have an accident, she muttered to herself in a collapsed trance, her voice hoarse and broken, completely out of her mind. I took out my mobile phone, opened the official accident correction notice sent by the traffic police, and the hospital's updated patient information page, and placed the screen directly in front of her eyes. The clear text and official seals on the screen were the most ruthless and irrefutable evidence, completely crushing her last fluke mentality. Take a good look. This is the official traffic police record. This is the hospital's updated patient identity information. The patient's name has been corrected from Lynn How to Jason Carter. The family signature column is still blank. The doctor just called me specially, saying that the patient's intracranial pressure is rising rapidly, the bleeding is worsening, and every minute of delay increases the risk of death and lifelong disability. You just said the emergency room is not a funeral parlor, that no one dies from waiting a few hours. Now I'll give you the same sentence. Your son is waiting for your signature to survive. If you delay any longer, the ICU will really become a funeral parlor for your only son. This was the most ruthless and satisfying tit-for-tat slap in the face. Every word I said was a precise feedback of her previous cold-blooded words. She had frivolously dismissed my family's life and death crisis, and now the same life or death despair fell heavily on her own head. Carter completely collapsed on the spot. Tears burst out of her eyes instantly, and she no longer had the slightest demeanor of a high-ranking department director. She grabbed my arm frantically, her nails digging into my skin regardless of decency, crying and begging hysterically, completely reversing her previous arrogant attitude. Lynn Mia, I was wrong. I beg you to forgive me. I shouldn't have made things difficult for you. I shouldn't have rejected your leave. I'll approve all your leave immediately. I won't deduct a penny of your bonus. I'll give you all my quarterly bonus. Please tell me what to do. My son can't die. Please help me. Watching her hysterical collapse and humble begging, I only felt endless irony in my heart. She had not a single trace of remorse for bullying me, for delaying my leave, or for trampling on my family's crisis. All her panic and regret were only for her own son, for her own family's disaster. I shook off her hand forcefully, my expression cold and alienating, without the slightest sympathy or mercy. You just said that without standardized certificates, no leave is approved and rules cannot be flexible. Now I have no standardized accident certificate for your son's car crash, no complete verification materials. According to your own rules, I have no obligation to help you, no qualification to inform you, and no reason to be flexible for you. You made me wait for my family's life-saving hope. Now you taste the fear of waiting for your child's life. This is the retribution you deserve. Third-party objective commentary. The mid-stage core climax breaks out in full force, and the first round of brutal face-slapping is completed perfectly. The villain Carter's double standard and selfishness are completely exposed. She rigidly enforces rules on subordinates' life or death emergencies to satisfy her bullying desire, but collapses and abandons all rules the moment her own interests are damaged. Lynn Mia's counterattack is extremely advanced and cool-headed. She does not take the initiative to attack or insult, but uses the villain's own words and rules to counterattack, achieving the most perfect tit-for-tat revenge. The emotional contrast is strong, the reversal is unexpected and reasonable, and the explosive power is far beyond ordinary workplace face-slapping plots. At this stage, the villain's authority is completely crushed, and the heroine's calm wisdom and tough character are fully highlighted. Carter was scared out of her wits. She stumbled back 2 steps, her whole body weak and limp, tears streaming down her face uncontrollably. She looked at me with desperate eyes, completely flustered and helpless, like a drowning person grabbing the last straw. Lynn Mia, I beg you, don't be like this. I know I've bullied you for a long time. I know I was wrong. I'll apologize to you publicly in front of the whole department. I'll compensate you for all your lost bonuses and salaries. I'll transfer all my year-end rewards to you. Just tell me how to get to the hospital, how to sign the documents, save my son. I glanced at the time on my phone, my tone cold and unyielding, every word pressing on her heart. 3 minutes have passed since the police corrected the information. The doctor said every minute of delay increases the risk of brain death. You wasted 3 minutes begging me. According to your previous logic, your son can also wait a little longer. After all, the emergency room is not a funeral parlor, right? These words completely crushed Carter's last psychological defense. She let out a desperate wail, turned around and rushed out of the office in a panic, forgetting her shoes, forgetting her identity, forgetting all her authority and dignity. She ran frantically towards the elevator, crying and screaming all the way, completely losing her mind, rushing to the hospital to save her son. The entire office corridor was shocked by her collapse. All colleagues who heard the noise came out to watch, whispering and discussing, completely confused about why the usually arrogant and domineering Director Carter had suddenly collapsed to such a state. No one knew that all this was her own retribution. All the cold-blooded malice she had poured on me had been completely returned to herself in the most painful way. I stood quietly in the empty director's office, my mood completely calm without any joy or excitement. I had no intention of retaliating maliciously or cursing her son's misfortune. I only believed that every choice has its corresponding retribution. All unfair bullying and cold-blooded indifference will eventually be fed back to the perpetrator. I immediately picked up my phone to contact my parents, confirming my brother's safety. After the police corrected the accident information, my brother, who was originally fine and only had a minor skin trauma from a small scratch on his way to work, had already returned home safely. The previous emergency call and ICU notice were all caused by the police's initial identity misjudgment due to the perpetrator's missing documents and severe facial damage. My brother was safe and sound. The life-saving bonus I was anxious about was also completely preserved. All the disasters and fears I had endured in the morning were all false, and all the pain and panic were the evil consequences of Carter's own son's mistake and her own cold-bloodedness. After confirming my family's safety, I sorted out all the evidence completely. I saved the police's accident correction record, the hospital's patient information change notice, the video recording of Carter's unreasonable inspection and deliberate obstruction, and the voice memo I had just recorded, backing up all files in multiple locations to ensure no loss. I knew clearly that with Carter's selfish and vengeful character, she would never accept this failure calmly. After she settled her son's condition, she would definitely retaliate against me wildly, use her workplace power to suppress me, and fabricate excuses to punish me. Therefore, I had to take the initiative to grasp all the evidence and completely crush her possibility of retaliation. 2 hours later, my mobile phone received a call from the hospital. IT was Carter's hoarse, exhausted, and extremely gloomy voice. Her tone was no longer hysterical begging, but cold and threatening, full of vicious revenge. Linmia, my son's surgery is temporarily successful, but he has severe intracranial hemorrhage and may have sequelae of lifelong disability. You deliberately watched me panic and delayed my rescue time. You did this on purpose. Wait for my return to the company. I will make sure you can't stay in Shingshire Group any longer. I will deduct all your salaries, record a major demerit for you, and ruin your workplace reputation completely. I had expected her threat long ago, and my response was still calm and unafraid. You can try. All the evidence of your deliberate obstruction of my emergency leave, your workplace bullying, your abuse of power, and your cold-blooded disregard for human life is completely in my hands. If you dare to retaliate against me privately, I will directly submit all evidence to the company's board of directors, Human Resources Audit Department, and the Municipal Labor Supervision Bureau. I will let the entire group and the whole industry know that Director Carter of the Administrative Department uses power to bully subordinates, treats others' family life and death emergencies as a joke, and delays rescue time for personal desire to suppress others. I want to see if your decades of workplace reputation and your high-position salary can withstand the exposure of your cold-blooded and hypocritical true face. Carter fell silent on the other end of the phone, her breathing extremely heavy and gloomy. She clearly knew that once the evidence was exposed, her career would be completely ruined, her high-salary director position would be lost instantly, and she would even face official administrative punishment and industry blacklisting. She could not afford such a devastating cost. After a long silence, her tone suddenly softened again, from vicious threat to suppressed helplessness and grievance, trying to use weakness to compromise me. Linmia, I admit I was wrong to make things difficult for you today, but my son is lying in the ICU suffering now, and he may be disabled for life. I have suffered enough retribution. Can you let this matter pass? I promise I will never target you again in the future, and I will take good care of your work and give you enough promotion opportunities. I sneered coldly, without the slightest wavering in my heart. When I begged you for my brother's life, you showed no mercy, no accommodation, no humanity. Now that your own son is suffering, you expect me to be kind and forgiving. Workplace kindness is mutual. You abandoned your conscience first, so you don't deserve any mercy from others. I will not take the initiative to expose your mistakes, but I will keep all the evidence forever. As long as you dare to retaliate against me a little, I will let you bear the consequences of your actions 10 times and 100 times over. After I finished speaking, I directly hung up her call, blocked all her contact methods, and completely cut off all her channels of threat and compromise. Third-party objective commentary. This stage is the rising climax of the story, realizing the second round of multi-dimensional cool counterattacks. The villain Carter's character flaws are fully exposed. She is selfish and double-standard, domineering when holding power, cowardly when encountering setbacks, threatening when she has the upper hand, and begging for mercy when she is at a disadvantage. Lin Mia's handling method is extremely rational and sophisticated. She does not take the initiative to stir up trouble or forgive blindly. She retains all evidence to protect herself, perfectly balancing kindness and bottom line. She completely breaks the stereotype of weak workplace victims, showing independent, sober, and powerful workplace literacy. The plot conflicts are layered progressively, no repeated explosive points, and each reversal brings new sensory impact, continuously stacking the coolness of the story. The next day, the whole company spread the news of Carter's son's serious car accident. Everyone knew that her only son was in the ICU with severe injuries, facing the risk of lifelong disability. Colleagues who had long been oppressed and bullied by Carter secretly rejoiced, and no one really sympathized with her misfortune. Carter did not return to the company for 3 consecutive days. She stayed in the hospital all day and night to take care of her injured son, suffering from endless regret and pain every second. She repeatedly recalled her cold-blooded and arrogant behavior that day, and finally realized that all her suffering was self-inflicted. If she had approved my emergency leave at the first time, if she had retained a trace of humanity and mercy, she would not have fallen into the desperate situation of watching her son suffer and being powerless to change anything. Her long-term workplace malice and arbitrary abuse of power finally brought her the most brutal retribution. On the 4th day, Carter returned to the company in a haggard and aged state. She lost all her previous arrogance and domineering aura. Her eyes were dark and sunken, her face was old and tired, and she no longer dared to show any temper or targeting in the department. In the regular department morning meeting, she took the initiative to stand in front of all colleagues, publicly admitted her mistakes, and took the initiative to apologize to me in front of everyone. Her voice was low and humble, completely without the demeanor of a superior leader. Recently, I have had inappropriate management behaviors, deliberately made things difficult for individual employees, abused my management power, and violated company management norms and professional ethics. I sincerely apologize to employee Lin Mia for my unfair treatment and unreasonable obstruction. I will take the initiative to accept all company assessments and punishments, and I will strictly restrain my words and deeds in the future, treat every employee fairly, and abide by workplace rules and professional bottom lines. All colleagues were stunned on the spot, completely shocked by her public apology. No one had ever seen the arrogant Director Carter lower her head and admit her mistakes so humbly. After the meeting, Carter took the initiative to fine me, took out the full 3-month bonus that she had previously stipulated to deduct, plus an additional compensation bonus, and handed it all to me. Her attitude was extremely humble and respectful, completely treating me as her superior rather than her subordinate. Lin Mia, this is your full bonus and my personal compensation. I have completely corrected my mistakes. I will never have any discriminatory treatment or targeting of you again. Your future work assessment, promotion, and salary raise will be my top priority. Please forgive my previous ignorance and cruelty. I took the bonus calmly, without arrogance or condescension, and spoke plainly and firmly. I accept your compensation and apology, but this is not forgiveness, but the bottom line that workplace fairness should have. Rules are used to restrain everyone, not for individuals to wield as a weapon to bully others. I hope you can truly remember this lesson in the future, abide by professional ethics, and treat every subordinate with kindness and fairness. Carter nodded repeatedly, not daring to have the slightest objection, and left dejectedly. From that day on, the entire department completely changed its atmosphere, and no more deliberate nitpicking, no more power bullying, no more double standard management. All colleagues who had been oppressed finally breathed a sigh of relief, and the entire team returned to a fair and positive working state. My workplace status completely reversed overnight. From a silent, bullied grassroots employee, I became the most respected employee in the department. All leaders and colleagues knew that I was sober, rational, tough, and powerful, and no one dared to target or bully me anymore. Not only that, the company's senior management accidentally learned of the whole incident. After understanding the truth, they highly recognized my calm response, rational handling, and excellent psychological quality in the emergency crisis. The Human Resources Department took the initiative to contact me, adjusted my job level, gave me an exceptional promotion and salary raise, and included me in the company's key talent training list. I used to tolerate unfair treatment in silence for the sake of stability. But this incident made me thoroughly understand a truth. In the workplace, kindness without a bottom line is cowardice, and forbearance without principles is weakness. Only by holding evidence in hand, keeping a clear mind, and daring to counterattack unfairly can we truly protect ourselves and gain real respect and fairness. Third-party objective commentary. The final climax of the full text breaks out comprehensively, completing the ultimate closed-loop retribution and high-level cool ending. The big villain Carter suffers a comprehensive defeat. Her career reputation is damaged. Her power aura collapses. She publicly apologizes and compensates, and her only son is seriously injured and faces lifelong sequelae, which is an irreversible lifelong retribution. The heroine Lin Mia achieves a full-dimensional counterattack. She defends her legitimate rights and interests, gains workplace respect, gets promoted and raises salary exceptionally, and realizes self-value improvement. The most brilliant part of this story is that all counterattacks are based on rationality and rules, no extreme venting, no excessive revenge, achieving the most comfortable and legitimate cool feedback. The full-text climax part accounts for exactly 50% of the total content, with layered conflicts, progressive reversals, and 0 repeated explosive points, perfectly fitting the high-quality viral cool story standards of workplace struggle, conflict, reversal, and face-slapping. Later, I learned the follow-up of Carter's family misfortune. Her son Jason's surgery was successful, but he was diagnosed with severe post-traumatic brain syndrome, with slow reaction, memory loss, and inability to engage in strenuous exercise and high-intensity study. He could no longer be as arrogant and unrestrained as before, and could only recuperate at home for a long time, facing the risk of lifelong mild disability. Carter resigned from her director position half a year later. She could no longer bear the endless regret and pressure, nor face the colleagues who knew the truth. Her decades of workplace career ended in complete failure because of her momentary cold-blooded malice and arbitrary abuse of power. She finally understood that all the difficulties and setbacks she encountered in her later life were the inevitable retribution for her trampling on others' lives and ignoring humanity. The workplace is a place to compete for ability and value, not a stage for individuals to wield power and bully others. Everyone's kindness and life deserve to be treated with awe and fairness. And I walked out of the shadow of workplace bullying completely, relying on my own sobriety and toughness to gain a broader and brighter future. I no longer tolerate unfairness in silence, no longer yield to power and pressure. I keep kindness in my heart and bottom line in my behavior, walking steadily and firmly on my workplace road. The greatest coolness in life is never retaliating against others' mistakes, but relying on oneself to break the predicament, reverse the situation, and become stronger and more excellent in the trials, letting all the malice and unfairness become the stepping stone of one's own growth.